Welcome to Cut the Crap, an intentionally heretical podcast where we attempt to have non-dogmatic conversations about deep and important spiritual topics. Today, we are going to talk about trying to be religious people, spiritual people, people of peace in an increasingly, ideologically strange world. I am Pastor Trey Comstock. With me, we're all together in one place, which is really good. Acts chapter 2 joke. It's really funny. We're all together in one place. I am here with
Pastor Emily Larson,
Anthony Malo.
And yes, we are here to talk. Okay, so this is one of those. Posit one, which is probably not shocking. We live in a really divided world. Mm-hmm. We live in a society that is deeply divided. Mm-hmm. But this society that is deeply divided, it's not just that people disagree. It is gotten to a place where leaving emotional room for the care of the person on the other side can get you labeled a traitor to whatever movement you're a part of. Mm-hmm. Now, I happen to be the whatever part of the movement used to exist when liberal Twitter existed. I am from liberal Twitter. It doesn't exist anymore. They all left. I think they're all on Blue Sky now.
Yeah.
I just haven't followed. I'm not on Twitter. I want to be clear. I'm not on Twitter either.
But we are on Blue Sky.
But we're on Blue Sky.
Right.
But I am not yet obsessively scrolling Blue Sky in the same way that I maybe lived on liberal Twitter, progressive Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I that's where I lived, and it has so we live in this really divided world, and we're not the first group of people to live in a divided world, and we're not the first group of people to experience deeply whatever divisions. And so the more I've thought about this deeply fucking divided world that we live in, and how mad I am a lot of the time, the parable of the Good Samaritan, this real classic Christian parable, floated at the top of my head. Mm-hmm. And I like to preach on that parable. It's an all-timer. It's in the Gospel of Luke. It's it's great, and we love to preach on it, right? Because it's it's a great way to own the establishment, right? Because here's the pitch, right? I'll tell it in rather than read it. I will tell it in summary, right? So this guy is walking on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho. He gets assaulted. This is well known in the ancient world as a place for bandits, and so he gets fucking jumped. And beat to nearly to death. Yeah. As he's lying there dying on the side of the road, all these important religious people, societal people walk by and don't care for him. The person that stops is the Samaritan, which is not a word that most of us know except from this parable. And so this Samaritan stops and takes care of him, and not only notices him, but takes care of him, patches him up, takes him to an innkeeper, spends real money to care for him, does the right thing to do, he's the good guy of the story, is this Samaritan individual. Okay, so then you do the real classic exegesis. You do the real classic, let's analyze this text historically, and you get that a Samaritan wasn't just random. They were hated enemies. So yes. Samaritans are the descendants. Okay, little bit of biblical history. That's not what this show is, but you need it for context. I'm going somewhere with this. Bear with me. If you want a lot of scripture, there's the other show. There's the goodness of God. That's not this show, but stick with me, friends. Okay, so Samaria was a part of Israel when it was one united country. They split up and became Israel and Judah. But most of the heroes you like are actually from Judah. They're the ones that, from the Old Testament's perspective, stay faithful. And the people who retain the name Israel eventually become the Samaritans. So really key. Samaritans and Judeans believe that they worship the same God. And one of the conflicts is that the Samaritans worship God on one mountain, and the Judeans worship God on Mount Zion in Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. And so this Nietzsche's whatever. They are, they hate each other because there's this really profound religious difference that from the Judean perspective, which is who this parable is being written for, these are people that are taking their religion and pissing all over it. Yep. Absolutely ruining it.
Yes.
Also, the Samaritans were richer, and so they lived more comfortably. And so between those two things, like, so to have like the parable of the Good Samaritan, we go, oh yes, of course, it's the parable of the Good Samaritan. I love that story, and you should. It's a great story. It, like, it shows Luke's storytelling prowess. It's a great parable. It, like the parable of the prodigal son, only in Luke, and just so well told. Beautiful, all timer. Yeah, but the shock value doesn't hit.
Because we use the term Good Samaritan still today to mean somebody that has stopped and helped somebody else, right? It's become synonymous with somebody who's helpful.
Yeah, but it was
Not
like
what it actually was.
It was
at
the
time.
hated enemy. This is like a shocking, like, grab a dude by the beard, kind of yank him around kind of parable,
Shock.
right? Just shock. And so it's really difficult to translate into the modern day without really pissing people off, which is what this show is for. And so, welcome to Cut the Crap. You already know this is a show where we intentionally really piss people off. And so, okay, so I've spent the past decade and a bit of my life of how do I translate this into modern language, and so you can you can do the like mild but true, like the parable of the good gang leader, but that's not really what it is, right? Because you need this element of person who really is taking a thing you really care about and ruining it. But it can't just be like, oh, gang leaders bad, drug dealers bad, runners of a cartel bad, coyotes bad. Like, these are just like morally bad, and that's not really the dynamic here. This is entity group whatever taking the thing that you love, the thing that you think is most important in the world, and deliberately ruining it. Deliberately doing it so differently from you as to just be anathema to what you think is right. And so this is where, if you live in progressive Twitter, as I used to, not because I stopped being progressive, but because Twitter, this is the parable of the good Trumpist, is what this parable is. So to translate it into anger and shock modern progressives, as I'm deliberately trying to do in this pitch, it's the parable of the good Trumpist.
Right.
It is the parable of the good person in the red and white hat.
Right.
That's what this parable is.
Or the parable of the good Nazi.
The parable of the good Nazi.
The parable of the good KKK member.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
like the Christian Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
Right? You're still, I mean, that would have been the shock value.
Right.
Of the time.
This is, again, people, and you go, no, that feels bad. It's supposed to feel bad.
Yes.
It's supposed to feel shocking. This is Jesus grabbing a guy by the beard, yanking him around.
This is shock and awe.
This is shock and awe. This is forcing the listener to rethink the nature of reality and what it means to have opponents and what it means to have disagree. He doesn't say that this Samaritan is now worshiping God correctly.
Right. It's
fucking
not
silent.
a Samaritan that had a change of heart.
No.
This
is the
Samaritan.
changed his mind and his position.
Exactly. Right. This is a good Samaritan.
Right. And all the and in the parable, all the people who had all the righteous right beliefs, all the orthodox people, is just a fancy word for right belief. We use it a lot of different ways, but it just means right belief, right? Like the people with all the orthodox beliefs, all the right beliefs, just walk the fuck on by. And what stops is the Samaritan. What stops is the Trumpist. What stops is the Nazi. Like that's what this is. And I find that really convicting.
Yes.
Right. I find that deeply convicting that we live in this really divided world. And I am really convinced there's some people doing some really bad things to the thing that I love. And yet here is a parable meant exactly for that reminds me that this is not so simple as I want it to be.
Right. Who was it that said, beware ye the us and them?
Yeah.
Anytime we have that phraseology of us versus them, right? Whenever you create that dichotomy of we are over here on the right side and you are over there on the wrong side, then we start to have a problem because we can't meet in the middle, because we can't start to love the person on the other side still, as Jesus did.
And here, and recognizing that both they are perhaps not as irredeemable as we can internalize them as. And also the point that Jesus is making is that maybe in some ways things they are doing, maybe not beliefs that they hold, but things they are doing may in fact make them at least as righteous, if not more right. Like that like righteousness that is not a flat, like, you believe this, therefore you are righteous. You don't believe this, therefore you are unrighteous. You are the heretic. You are the enemy. You must die. You must be excised from reality. You must be hated. We must hate you. We can't associate with you. Like, all of these things that spin out of this incredibly divided moment. And here he places deliberately, like it's a division of which there has been blood shed, and it's the parable of the Good Samaritan, and it is very deliberately built for shock value.
Well, and so meant to challenge you to say, because the end of this parable is, okay, who then was the neighbor, right? Who then did the right thing, right? Who was righteous? Not who was right believing, but who acted righteously.
And this is, so we could make this all about our modern political moment, but it's not, like, we just live in like a really divided moment. And where my mind goes with this, and so most of you who are listening to this are, I pray, blissfully unaware. But there has been a lot of, or at least a rash of religious violence in Nigeria, between Methodists.
Not even between Christians, non-Christians.
No.
Different, same denomination not that long ago. Methodists and other Methodists.
Right. There have been Methodist on Methodist murder. There has been Methodist on Methodist house burning.
Arson.
Children
have been hurt. It's awful.
Yeah. People are dead. Children have been hurt. People have lost their homes. All growing out of the conflict between the United Methodist Church and the Global Methodist Church, which is just not a sentence I ever thought I'd say.
Right.
Methodist on Methodist violence. And this could be a thing where I sit and go, and now everywhere you need to condemn the violence. We condemn this violence.
Right.
And any denomination's role in it, anyone, like, this is not right, it's bad. But it also gets me thinking of, I am obviously not in Nigeria. Maybe this isn't obvious. I am A, not in Nigeria, and B, I am not starting fires. I am not participating in this violence. But I did participate heavily in the conflict that has now become this violence.
Right.
And I think that feeling of complicity, combined with the line I can't shake from my head, which is literally the phrase, the parable of the good Trumpist, has really put me in an introspective place of my own role in fueling divisions and fueling us and them conflicts. And the place I am most, I'm as guilty as anyone who privately talks about politics of really reducing it to an us and them. But I pray I haven't run churches that way. Maybe I've been more successful at times than less, but I really, like, in this political moment here in the United States, I've tried to run churches from the middle of recognizing that on any given Sunday I have Trumpists and progressives and whatever, and that's been true of every church I've served in this weird fucked up era, and I've tried to lead from the middle, and you can debate. The place where I have been less successful on this is I was a very angry, outspoken revolutionary. I was a firebrand within the fuck you, you're not taking our denomination movement. We had the people who named
there was
it,
a different name than that.
Yeah, right. But
that was not the name.
But when you needed someone to go in the microphone and be a dickhead, I was that dickhead. That was one of my jobs was to be a firebrand within the movement of reminding them of like, they're stealing our money, they're doing this, they're doing this, they're doing this, and we should be pissed about this.
Right. Every organization needs its asshole, and you were that
and I was that
asshole.
I was absolutely that asshole. And then if you needed someone to be an asshole in public, I can, as this show I think is determined, I am uniquely capable of being an asshole in public. And that means that I helped fuel the us and them nature of this conflict. I helped fuel that. And again, like this is taking a sense of culpability maybe too far, but a thing that was a war of words when I was fighting it is now a war of physical violence half a world away. And I am stuck reminding myself that in my own small way, I helped promote a culture that said, it is us and those are them, and we need to stop them from fucking with us.
And one of the things that's really hard about trying to lead a church from the middle, like you said, is because the power of words, exactly, it's because of the power of our words. I remember one time I preached a completely non-political sermon. It was not a political statement. I was not trying to make a stand, and I was in a tiny, tiny East Texas church that had people on, they had progressives, they had conservatives, and I had two people come up to me after the service. The first one, who was very, very progressive, said, "Oh man, that's fantastic. You should print out your sermon and send it to this very progressive person." And then I had another person who was very, very conservative go, "Oh my gosh, that was fantastic. You should print out your sermon and send it to this very conservative person." And I went, y'all did not, I messed up. Like that was not what I was trying to say at all. But in trying to hold space for everyone at the table, I ended up inadvertently creating a political statement that I never intended to, right?
Well,
so it's so hard not to.
And I think about, we probably, Anthony's excluded from this. It was me and you, Emily. I think we fucked up how we handled the kind of Black Lives Matter moment.
Yeah.
When we were, leading in Palestine, Texas, a real difficult place to navigate politics. And we were, I know we were really moved. Sister Brandy Dudley, who is a Black woman, was on our team, and we should have done something even if she wasn't on our team. And that's the nature of it. It's not that we didn't do anything, but we didn't
We didn't do very much.
Well,
it almost felt like not enough.
Well, we certainly didn't make waves and got no letters.
Right.
And so clearly, like in that one, in this, I often, and both of you are no doubt tired of hearing this, but this is a brand new audience, so I get to talk about it to somebody else. Is that the chasm between like being so prophetic that no one listens to you and being a coward.
Yes.
Right, like it's like a really narrow way, and I think with at that moment, I think we were cowards. I think we were too cowardly. I think we did not make a firm enough statement. Again, we tried a thing, which was okay. I am going to cede the pastoral prayer to Brandy. I'm going to hand her the microphone, and then I'm going to shut the fuck up, and she can say whatever she wants. And then she said something that was very much from the perspective of a Black woman, deeply moved by the fact that we all watched a cop, who I won't name, kill a man. And we all saw a video of a man being killed. And this is, obviously not the first time that this has happened. It's just, it became a moment. It became a movement, and no one ever said anything to us about it, which tells me perhaps if I look at my work in the what I keep calling the revolution as like the firebrand, I understand that like I have, I'm making this show as a way of processing my own feelings about people getting killed in Nigeria, about a conflict that I helped fuel. Mm-hmm. Very small. I'm a bit player in this drama, but I'm a player. And then, so maybe that was too much here. I think it was too little. I think we probably should have been, whatever, I will be less hand-wringing about it. We should have been more willing to ruffle feathers, because Black lives do matter. And we were really afraid of what saying that was going to mean. And we should be, but also, fuck, man. We didn't do enough. We did not do enough.
Yeah.
We fucked it up.
So, yeah, that chasm between being a coward and being too prophetic, it's minute.
Right.
It's
yes.
very small. It's just a very fine line to walk. And then at other times we've been like, you know what? If they're not shooting at you, you're not doing something right. Right. And we just kind of raise our hands and go, you know what? They're not going to like it. It's okay. We're going to do it anyways. Right. So it just depends on this context and what is it that makes someone brave enough to say and not. Right?
Well, and how do we, and I don't have the answer for this, and that's why we're doing this, is how do we navigate there are things worth fighting for.
Yes.
Right? Like Jesus ruffles a lot of fucking feathers.
Right. Overturns a lot of tables.
They kill him. Right? They kill.
They
felt
him for
the
it.
need to kill him, which tells you they were not happy with the things he was doing.
But also, Jesus loved so deeply that the rest of the disciples didn't know it was Judas.
Right.
Right? So, yes, both and.
Right.
This is a both and.
And I think Anthony's probably a better scholar of this than I am, but you look at one of the things that is consistent across religious traditions is these ideas of peace, is these ideas of certainly in all the Abrahamic traditions, is the love and the love of the stranger, and in the Christian tradition, the idea of loving your enemy, the Acts of the Apostles is a lot about the innate humanity of Gentiles who were also this kind of excluded group, who were, and yet here they are, and eventually the whole church is full of fucking Gentiles, and there's Gentiles fucking everywhere. And so what does it mean to be people of peace, but also not to have some understanding? One of these like things across religious traditions seems to be this like understanding of like the innate humanity of the other, right? The innate humanity of humans, with like, yeah, but some humans are Nazis,
right?
Like, and that's a problem,
right? This is a problem. Does it mean you condone the behavior? But so much of the New Testament is the first church going, but wait, we can't do that. They're Gentiles. But wait, why are they included? They're tax collectors. They're sinners. They're prostitutes. Or whatever, right? And they figure it out.
They're Romans, right?
They're Romans.
There's Romans. Like
right.
These are Roman soldiers. These are not even just like nice, redeemable Gentiles. This is like a Roman centurion
that lead people off to lions' dens, right? Like this is not a good space to be in. That would have been their Nazis, right? And yet, who else may be included and redeemed into the kingdom of God? And the answer is, well, yeah, everybody is capable of redemption by this God that we serve.
Yeah, and I wonder in the Good Samaritan, like, was the Samaritan approaching and seeing what the man lying in the road believed, or was he seeing him in all his human dignity, all his righteousness from God? All of these things are the things that he saw first, before seeing the belief of the person. And perhaps that's, and I understand, Trey, this real dilemma and tension between justice, like when is it justice and when is it, and when am I just adding to the duality or to the dualistic argument. And it's a really tough one, I suppose, but I do feel that many stories throughout Scripture point to seeing the individual first and acting upon that, and then taking to account belief and repercussions and dialogue and things of that nature.
So there's this podcast I listen to. This is not one with Mike Cosper. I listen to podcasts not made by Mike Cosper. It's called Weird Little Guys, by this journalist who is an expert in the far right. Her name's Molly Conger. She's a Charlottesville-based journalist. And she has been, from a progressive perspective, covering kind of the rise of the alt-right and white supremacy, Christian nationalism, all this like real toxic mix that is one of the things that sits at the core of our highly divided moment. And she did a Q&A podcast this week that as we're recording it. And normally she tells like wild stories about like, you know, like a woman who lives in Louisiana now was actually a famous fighter for white supremacy in South Africa and helped smuggle in German mercenaries into South Africa to help fuel a race war towards the end of apartheid.
Wow.
And now she's just like living in Louisiana, and like that's wild, right? And so normally that's what Molly does, and I, you know, her editing and delivery is tremendous. If you want to hear the incredibly weird stories about these weird little guys, listen to Molly Conger's show. She's great. But she did a Q&A episode this week that was. And the first question that she was asked is like, hey, essentially the secular version of, are these people redeemable? It was not how that question was framed, but it was like, can these people change? Or is there a point of no return? At which case, like that person is, to use a theological term, irredeemable. And Molly comes back with a word of hope. This is an entirely secular show, but like that she has to believe that they can change because that's really why she does it. She has to believe that change is possible, that actually this work has not made her cynical, that she holds on to that hope that people can change. And she had this line that was real, again, convicting for me. It was like, I'm not a philosopher or a theologian. Well, fuck it. I am a theologian. And I have really good theology that tells me that all of the weird little guys can change. That all of the weird little guys, even when they're not guys, they're weird little guys. And it's the way it is. Like I'm mad at about a lot of the same things that Molly Conger is mad about. It's why I like that show, because I look at these hate-filled and racist ideologies often wrapped in Christianity, and so it is a country that I at least care deeply about, even if I can't always claim to love. It is my country, and perhaps I love this country because it is mine. To quote my favorite scholar from who spoke in Old Armenian, and I certainly love the church, and I love Christianity, and I love Jesus, and to watch so much of it gets wrapped in like the Christian Identity Church, which is this like white, like a theology of whiteness, even though the whole fucking books were written by people of color. Just fuck you, fuck all of you, you weird little guys. Right, and so, but like, I am mad about the same a lot of these same things. This show is. I listen to the show in part as a reminder of how far we all have to go in this work of creating a more just world in the name of God. But also, I have an entire book of theology, an entire theological tradition that I'm often very poor of living into, of, yes, they are not beyond redemption, you idiot.
Right.
That's the point. That's why we can all have hope. We can all have hope in Christ because there's no such thing as the irredeemable.
Yes, that's where our faith comes in. Is it's not up to us about who is doing the redeeming. That's God's job,
Right?
But that we can have faith that everybody is redeemable. Both, the Nazi, the person of color, the ICE agent, and the illegal immigrant. Whatever political schism you would like to fill in the blank here, you can look at the human, the person, at the divine that is in every single person. And recognize that redeemability.
Put the care of one another in the forefront.
Yes.
And then let God do the judging. And again, maybe you can speak on this more, Trey. If that is the case, creating this environment of care and nurture and belonging in the face of these things like we're talking about in Africa that need to be addressed. And so where do y'all see we fall within that?
I wonder. I wonder about, like, there's this wonderful production at the George Theater right now in Houston. How to Die: The Life of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Right, and what that play highlights for me is that reminder that we're not clear, as even amongst the people I think of as my theological heroes, my theological informers, we are not clear about where is violence righteous. Now, I also want to be clear that even Bonhoeffer, who chose violence, wasn't sure that it was righteous.
Yeah.
Right.
There's the play didn't do a good job of wrestling this, but Bonhoeffer does a great job of
Bonhoeffer did, and
does a great job of wrestling this, and he lands at basically ethics is 900 pages that comes to not a conclusion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is, I don't know if it's righteous, but it sure fuck is Hitler. But he isn't sure that this will in any way be judged as righteous before God.
Right.
He lives in that mystery, and that lives in that uncertainty, and recognizes the potential of what he brings on himself. What Martin Luther King and that theological tradition, and those guys, King is reading Bonhoeffer and Barth, right? That this is all in a milieu. Bonhoeffer's 15, 20 years before King, but King is a Barth scholar, right? He knows of Bonhoeffer.
Yes.
And where King lands is, we don't do any violence; we let them do the violence to us. This is where they reach different conclusions.
Well, any of the greats, Desmond Tutu or Gandhi, or because there are hills worth dying on. Are there hills worth fighting on? Yeah,
or to just make it slightly more extreme, are there hills worth killing on?
Right.
That's the actual. I am very comfortable with saying there are hills worth dying for.
Right.
There are things worth dying for.
Yes.
There are beliefs worth dying for.
There's justice worth standing up for.
It's not every fight. You have to work really hard, decide when have you arrived at the hill on which you will die. You only get to pull that trick once, and so you gotta be do not throw away your shot. But there are hills we're dying on. I have I'd like to think of my own work. Every once in a while I've gotten that right. But so that's really comfortable. That's really a comfortable space for me. The question is, are there hills worth killing on?
Yeah.
And is there a place in an understanding of humanity in which you need to kill the other? And maybe, and I don't want to get into weird self-defense logic. I don't even mean that. I mean, is there a place in ideological conflict? Not, you're coming at me with a knife. If someone comes at you with a knife, fuck them up, man.
There was a really great conversation in our comments from our last Cut the Crap podcast, and it was the one about, does God condone genocide?
Yeah.
And we went, screw that, no. But there was a great, like, I wanted to get the popcorn because it was back and forth for like a week and a half, and I was just sitting here reading every comment going, okay, yeah, this is fun, because this is a theological debate that is ongoing. But you're right. Are there hills worth killing on?
Right. Because, again, Jesus dies on a hill. We know there are hills worth dying on. Jesus dies on one.
Right.
Literally, it's a hill. It's Golgotha, right? Like, Golgotha is literally a hill. So in the Christian position, we have fundamentally, from day fucking zero, said hills worth dying on. Yes.
Yes.
I just lived through Holy Week. I talked a lot about a guy dying on a hill of late.
But Joshua...
Yeah, and a book that back to Joshua. This is 2 episodes in a row, back to fucking Joshua,
Genocide,
right?
Yeah, man, come on.
And so this is, you can, and this is how it happens. And I have sat in a room with a very virulent Zionist leader. This was a million years ago now. This is 2015. I sat in Hagi Ben Artzi's office and asked Hagi a really dickhead question, because I am an asshole. And it was basically like, hey, this treatment of the Palestinians sure does seem to be unjust, Hagi. And Hagi said, yeah, but it's for the right reasons. Right? That, like, essentially the ends justify the means. That if we're going to build the God, we're going to have to do some, I have video of this. I should pull it and remember this quote exactly, because I am filtering this through 16 years of being pissed about it. But he said something to the effect of, to be the city of God, we might have to do some ungodly things first.
Ooh.
And then that's close to a quote. I take this as I was really mad, and so this might be an uncharitable read, but I'm not actually trying to give him an uncharitable read. Like, I asked him I'm sitting in his office, for a bunch of fucking college students, and he's welcomed us into his office, and I decided to be a dick. Welcome, yep. If you're like, man, the orange shirt guy sure is a jerk. Well known. Yes. It started early. And so I asked him this, like, really dickhead question, because I'm pissed. And he gives me, like, a really straight answer. Like, he doesn't kick me out of his office. He just basically says, like, yeah, to become the city of God, we might have to do some ungodly things. And I go, fuck, what I'm thinking in my time is, fuck you, Hagi. And then I, pour a lot of vitriol, a much smaller scale conflict, but there is now people dying in it.
Yes.
I am stuck, having been the firebrand dickhead of the revolutionary set, and I helped escalate. I encouraged escalation of rhetoric, and now the rhetoric has escalated to the point where people are dying in Nigeria, and I am left going, that's shit. So, Anthony, I'm not answering your question, because I think your question gets at the heart of this.
Right.
Of
what do you do?
What do you do?
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
How do we
live in that space?
How do we split? How do you fight bad shit? Right? How do you fight bad shit?
Fight on the side of justice.
I think that trying to create a denomination where queer people are permanently excluded is bad shit.
Right.
That has hurt people I love dearly. Contributed to people I love dearly committing suicide. And so I am not neutral in that. And I was in that fight and was being a dick because I am really angry. Still am angry about some of the things that happened. And angry conceptually at the concept of building a denomination that forever says get fucked to queer people. Fuck it. Like I will not apologize for having fought. But I am trapped in this uncertainty that I cannot resolve over how do we fight? And yet how do we also recognize the humanity of the other for against which we are fighting, while still recognizing the humanity of the people we are fighting with and for.
Right. How do you recognize the Imago Dei in every single person that you come across, no matter which side of that spectrum they're on?
Without betraying queer people, in this case, without betraying your queer allies.
Right.
It was a year ago this fucking week.
This week, yeah.
That I was in Charlotte, and I watched this exact conversation happen 4 feet behind my head daily of how, because what was really trying to be done, and I don't know how the narrative has evolved over this year, but the idea was, okay, we're going to put forward a reasonable number of changes that also recognizes the humanity of the traditionalists still with us in this room. And that really was what one of the things that I enjoyed about that work is that's really what we were trying to do. And we would daily get flung at us, oh, this is just the progressives are running away with it. And I'm like, dude, we have the votes. This is not what I'm going to tell you, this is not what the progressives running away with it looks like. If we wanted to, we would. And we were deliberately not. And, and I got my hand slapped about some things that I wrote because I was being too incendiary, or I was reporting it in a way that wasn't helpful. And so I had to really learn how to modulate my language to fit into this, I think, this very righteous movement. And we were also then getting, it flung at us from the other side of where we were abandoning our queer allies. And I think there are certainly times where that has happened. I think that's one of the ways I tell the story of what happened in our denomination in 2019. If you don't know what any of this story is, don't worry about it. It's not even interesting. It's just the thing I lived through. I think that's happened. It is, again, it goes back to that, prophetic and no one listens, or prophetic the deal you can't get any work done, and cowardice, or in this case, abandoning and actually caring more about the perpetrators of the bad shit versus the people to whom the bad shit is being perpetrated on, which I think is exactly what happened to us around Black Lives Matter, is we cared way more about the feelings of people who were racist, and happened to control the money by which we lived, and the town in which we lived, versus the people who were being choked to death.
Right. So how do we live in that tension?
I mean,
we don't.
You don't.
You don't.
You do.
We do. We all live in it. You just in it, son. This is just it.
The good news is, some of it is recognized. Step one is recognizing the tension.
Step one is recognizing you have a problem.
Step one is recognizing your problem. Okay. That's always. That is always for good, for ill, for indifferent. Step one. Step one is, there is a problem.
Perhaps wrestle with it, as Bonhoeffer did in Ethics.
As Bonhoeffer does in Ethics.
Spend some time wrestling.
As King and Gunny, they all have to. We all have to wrestle with this question. Step one is recognizing the causes that you have that passion for, and to not be afraid of that passion. Mm-hmm. Because again, if Jesus is our exemplar, Jesus is real passionate. And fights real hard. And so it is, this can't be an excuse to just never take a stand. I don't want to hurt anybody. Well, you might hurt some people's feelings. But then step two is to wrestle with that question of, what is the role of violence in this conflict? Mm-hmm. What makes violence valid?
Right. Well, and recognizing that inaction is a decision.
Right.
Is, choosing not to stand in the way of the violence is also a decision. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so this is, I don't want this. And again, we've tipped, we confessed to cowardice. We've tipped over to cowardice in this plenty. Mm-hmm. But that's wrong too. To not take a stand is wrong.
Right.
But there's a lot of violence, but physical and emotional and rhetorical, flying around, where we are where I have not just fought a fight, but done violence, ratcheted up tensions, created a world of us in them. Mm-hmm. which is the core of violence, right? The core of violence, core of like ideological violence, is you create an us and you create a them, and then them becomes a category that is less human than us,
Right.
and so then it becomes okay to harm them in ways that you would never harm us.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that them are fucking Nazis.
Yep.
And it is like it is unfortunately like this is one where I have, you know, we've been at this for some X amount of time, and in some ways it's just narrating the internal conflict.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But recognizing that I know what's happening, I know what I've contributed to, and I know what's happening in my own head, and then I also recognize that, you know, it's the parable that this is taking this a little far, but like I can actually believe in I can believe in the parable of a good GMC, or like that
Yes.
conflict, like, and then I have a different relationship with the leaders of that conflict than I do of like my, you know, friends who are GMC pastors, and who, you know, message me asking for advice about podcasting,
Right, and who are not contributing to the violence.
right. They're just like they're just conservative people who went in a conservative direction, and to which I say, right, of course, it's the, you know, but like, so it's not, you know, it's, you know, I do believe that, but like it's the parable, the parable of the Trumpist that I opened this whole conversation with is right. So that's meant to shake loose what does it mean to other people? Like,
well,
what is that ever okay?
And recognizing your rhetoric and the, you know, taking ownership of it and what that does, you know, to an angry mob, but also I think just wrestling with it ahead of time so that you know what is the thing you will do, right? What is the action that you will take, and where is the line that you will draw? There have been times in recent years even that I've had to call my husband and say, okay, here's the thing. If I need bail money, I promise you it was for a good reason. Here's the situation. And it is the hill I'm worth that's worth dying on. But, you know, maybe have a plan for some allies to bring you bail money if that's the case, right? If that's the decision that you make, to stand up for the side of justice or whatever. But think it through ahead of time and wrestle with those questions ahead of time.
I think also this is where the tradition of non-violent protest should be really helpful.
Should be very important.
Because also, it fucking works. It fucking works.
Yes.
And is a way of revealing the way to which you or the people you're standing up for are being dehumanized without yourself participating in further dehumanization.
Yeah.
Right. This is letter from a Birmingham jail.
Right.
You don't get that without...
we're just going to walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Right.
And what they do to us on the other side is on them.
Yes.
What we do is we're going to march.
Yep.
And that testimony, that put your body on the line, yourself be dehumanized while upholding your commitment to humanity. Like that's, you know, I don't know that defeats Hitler, but but also most things aren't Hitler. Most things are not Hitler.
Right.
And I would love to see a mass nonviolent movement to overcome some of the, you know, ways in which weird little guys have become the government. Like I would love to see this. I would love this to be like another like nonviolent protest, because nonviolent protest has real power.
Yes.
While it is not perfect, but it is. I think it is at least a wonderful other option of there's a hill worth dying on, and violence is inherently dehumanizing. The doing of violence is inherently othering and dehumanizing, and we are challenged to maintain the humanity of even our enemies. Fuck.
Right.
Shit. The nonviolent protests, nonviolent movements, especially mass nonviolent movements, in the end, they can't arrest everybody.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, they can't arrest everybody. In the end, like even dictatorships have to maintain the will of the governed. And at some point, if enough people are involved in nonviolent but effective ways,
yep,
like the dictators, the thing that we know that dictators do is dictators fall. Mm-hmm. That evil, that evil is defeatable, and the civil rights movement here in this country, of course, is also more complicated than this picture I'm painting. But one of the things that made it effective is it was just so many people willingly participating nonviolently to change. Mm-hmm. But also maybe sometimes it's Hitler. Like this is the tension.
This is the tension.
This is the
thing to wrestle with.
This is the thing to wrestle with. Yeah. That nobody's just one thing, and I certainly the Christian tradition sets that everybody is redeemable. This is unfortunately really true.
Fortunately, really true.
Right. Fortunately for us.
Fortunately,
and
really
unfortunately
true.
For our desire to say fuck you to people.
See, there you go with the us and the them.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
See?
Exactly. It is.
It's so hard. This is just our nature as humanity to create us and them.
Well, I think it sits at the core of sin number 2. Okay, mm-hmm. So if the original sin is at Adam and Eve eating a fruit, which is like not the okay. It's going against God's command. Sin 2 is Cain and Abel. Mm-hmm. Is one brother killing another brother. Mm-hmm. And because of us and them. Mm-hmm. Sin number 2, in the way Genesis frames the beginning of human wrongdoing, sin number 2 is an us and them conflict. Mm-hmm. Is the beginning of an us and to them. Mm-hmm. And it grows out into, this thing we keep doing.
Yep.
We are not going to answer this. We're not.
We don't have the answer.
We don't have the answer.
We ain't got it.
We have suggestions. We have confessions.
We have thought-provoking questions.
That's
all we got.
So if you want to continue this conversation, the best place to do that, we have found, is in the comments on wherever you are watching this. Or if you are listening to this, go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@DivineProvisionsCo or Facebook.com/ProvineProvisionsCo, and post in the comments for that. Mm-hmm. That has proven the most effective way. If you want to be a part of a conversation around this, if you have your own thoughts about navigating justice and cowardice and propheticness and not othering the people, not othering the theoretical enemies while also not abandoning the people that are being harmed, like that's the real, right. That's the real,
that's the push-pull.
That's the push-pull. Mm-hmm. It's real hard. Leave a comment there. That is the best way to involved in this conversation. We are the Divine Provisions Co., and we do need your help. Like, comment, subscribe, leave us 5-star reviews in Apple Podcast. Share some piece of this that you found meaningful. There's gonna be a whole bunch of shorts going up from this. There's a whole bunch of shorts out there. All of that helps this work go further and thus us become more sustainable. If you'd like to be financially involved in the work that we do, you can go to divineprovisions.co and click the donate button. You want to subscribe, it's at Divine Provisions Co. most places, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, at Divine Provisions Co. And at Divine Provisions C on Twitter. TikTok. Shoot. Yep. Not Twitter. I talked so much about Twitter. Twitter is just, it's all, even though I'm not on Twitter, it's
still in your brain.
Still in my brain. And remember, none of this has to be simple. The point is instead to stay in the conversation and wrestle our way through it.